Welcome back to Fast Market. I'm Tom White, joined by my co-host for the day, Nathan Peterson of Charles Schwab. But let's bring in our next guest for our cash tag segment. That's going to be Megan Brantley, Vice President of Research at LikeFolio. Thanks for joining us, Megan.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so we're talking Snapchat. Shares are down about 35% this year and down 63% from their all-time highs last September. What kind of data are you seeing going into this report for Snapchat? Because these social media companies have just been horrible over the last 6 months or so.
Yeah, so whenever we look at Snapchat, there are a couple of ways that we can kind of slice and dice this one. We can look at Snapchat's user growth, so those purchase intent mentions, those mentions from consumers who are talking about downloading or using the app, or we can look at potential ad conversions. So people who are talking about actually purchasing a product that they saw on Snapchat, either in an ad or that they learned about on the platform. And what we see is actually in our data, we're starting to see Snapchat gain a little bit of momentum. I know over the last year, our data has been relatively flat on Snapchat. And really for the first time this quarter, we're starting to see some positive traction for the company. You can see on this chart, these are mentions of people who are talking about actually purchasing an item, this concept of social commerce. So, using social media to identify brands and new products and actually completing purchases. And Snapchat is hanging in with the likes of TikTok. It's outperforming Facebook. And so this is, I think, something positive for the company. This is a potential sign that, for us at least, that digital ad spend is continuing to resume and continuing to improve versus 2020 and even potentially over 2021 levels, and that Snapchat is successfully navigating the new privacy updates. I know that was a big thing that a lot of companies, especially these social media companies, had to work around. And so that's why this is a really critical metric for us is, for a while, we saw these mentions, these conversion mentions on the decline on a year-over-year basis, and we're starting to see those flip around again. So it looks like, unsurprisingly, these companies are figuring out how to monetize their users, and it does look like Snapchat is doing well in this arena.
Nathan, did you have a question here for Megan?
Oh, yeah, sure do. Hey, Megan. Thanks for joining us today. So I was wondering about, in terms of the augmented reality kind of segment, I think that's one of the most potentially exciting revenue streams down the line for the company. From what I know right now, they do have some of those spectacles that you can buy and you can take pictures with those glasses. That they are coming out with the AR glasses that aren't for sale yet, but the developers are able to go ahead and develop on that platform. Have you seen any kind of indication about whether users are actually going after those the traditional spectacles where you can take the pictures, and if there's been any trends there, or if you have any data on the developers and whether there's been increased interest in developing on their AR spectacles?
That's a really good question. So we are tracking the spectacles, and we did see a pop whenever they started to announce, these new features and the new lenses that they're bringing forth. But I think, at least from a consumer perspective, what we see the most are consumers really love the lenses that Snapchat puts out. This is one of the key drivers of consumer happiness. We see they've also made improvements to their lens features, and a lot of this is related to the augmented reality, like you mentioned. I know that now you can even put lenses on your pet. We see a lot of mentions of that. So I think that Snapchat is in a really good position to potentially capitalize on the fun side of this, quote unquote, this metaverse that we keep talking about. So that's definitely something positive that has driven Snapchat's overall consumer happiness by about 5 points on a year-over-year basis. So consumers do like the development that they're putting in on the back end to enhance those lenses and to let consumers play around with kind of that technology, which naturally lends itself to that AR world.
Yeah, and Megan, I think that's one of the questions. I think you said that digital ad spend is starting to rise from Snap, but one of the problems that they've always had is that they haven't been able to monetize the user base that they have, over 300 million daily active users, and that's been an issue. Are they making any inroads to Instagram, which seems to be the leader in this space, where it's going to show continued growth moving forward? Because I'm hearing rumors that digital ad spend might have topped out over the last quarter, but it seems like Snap's doing well in that arena now, finally.
Yeah, we do see Snapchat making some improvements, and you're definitely right. Instagram is by far the leader here. I think that Instagram's platform lends itself better to that natural kind of shopping experience. It flows more seamlessly into a user's feed and appears as less of an interruption. And I think it's also important to consider how Snapchat is used traditionally, at least among consumers that we're listening to. They're using Snapchat to communicate. They're using Snapchat to send pictures to their friends and things like that. So advertising may seem a bit more intrusive. However, the fact that these mentions are increasing at this rate and the fact that Snapchat is hanging in with the likes of TikTok for us is really positive. It shows an improvement on a year-over-year basis. And you can see, I think on that line chart, those mentions of those conversions have continued to improve into the current quarter, and they're still rising. So definitely keep an eye on this. This is something that we'll watch pretty closely, but we do see signs that Snapchat is able to improve this part of its business. And while it still has a lot of catching up to do to the Instagrams of the world, it's making progress.
Definitely making progress. I'm wondering if they see any consolidation in daily active users on the platform as more people getting out doing more things, but also guidance moving forward, because that was a big headwind for Facebook Meta platforms, is the fact that they're spending so much money to get into this metaverse, and it's not monetizable at this point. But now going into this earnings report, Megan, do you guys have an earnings score for Snap?
We do. So our earnings score for Snap actually does lean pretty bullish. It's a 59. And a lot of that has to do with this rising happiness for Snapchat. That's a pretty long-term indicator for us whenever we see users reporting a better user experience. That tends to say that they're doing the right things from how users engage with the platform, and maybe lab ads are appearing as less intrusive. So that's good. But we also do see some signs of traction when it comes to that engagement, the user engagement. Those mentions are up by about 8% quarter over quarter. And that's not necessarily the case for a name like a Facebook. So we're definitely, we're expecting a strong report out of Snapchat into this quarter. But as you mentioned, we can't know what digital ad spend will be. So we look at that data, and we do think that Snapchat is improving its ability to monetize these users. Now, how much digital ad spend marketers and agencies are spending, that's still unknown for us.
Yeah, and it's the only social media platform that my son uses at this point, so I don't know what he's doing on there. All right, Megan, great data as always. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, that's Megan Brantley, Vice President of Research at LikeFolio, breaking down the data for us